what happens, family comes first, right? And I promise this is the last thing I'll say, and I've said this a million times, and you've heard me say this. There's a lot of voluntary activities that we do, right? We have the homeless feeding and youth programs at the masjid and so on and so forth. But and as an imam, I have all these lectures that I have to do and classes that I have to teach, which are all very, very important, by the way, don't get me wrong. But I consider getting in my car and going to Walgreens and standing in line of 6, 7 people ahead of me to pick up one medication for mom or dad and bringing it home more important than any of my other work, right? Because that's looking after my parents is an obligation, and everything else is not an obligation. It's a career, it's a job. If I don't teach, Sheikh Ala will teach, right? If I'm not, so keep that in mind. That's all I want to say, Stay tight with your family, be strong, it's awesome. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all harmony and unity within ourselves and our families. Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullah khairan, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair, Imam Tahir, for that. Reminding us the importance of, being tight with our family. And I want to thank you for, mentioning the story of Prophet Yusuf and, the experience he had with his brothers. And you even shared a little bit of your own experience with your brother and siblings, because our next speaker, Sister Tasneem, is going to talk to us about you are not alone because your brothers and sisters are with you. I'm going to briefly introduce Sister Tasneem and then pass the mic on to her to get started, inshallah. She is currently a PhD candidate in the Islamic Studies at Georgetown University with a focus on the development of Islamic law. She served as Director of Expanded Learning at Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research. And like I mentioned, she is here to talk to us about how you are not alone because your brothers and sisters are with you. Sister Tasneem.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's great to be with you here, all of you today. You will have to excuse me. There is a 3-hour time difference. So after this, inshallah, I'll have about an hour left till suhoor, so I'll have to hop off. And I did just wake up from a nap. So please bear with me, but alhamdulillah, excited to be with you guys all. And excited to talk about the topic that I have today, which is really just building that connection with people around you. And I know that seems impossible right now, right? Like, what connection do we have? We're all so distant from each other, and that's how we feel. But of course, there's still plenty of ways to really come close to each other and build a relationship stronger than ever. And I think the best way to do that is, as always, looking to the example of the Prophet ﷺ. And they're just, the way I love getting this message across of how the Prophet ﷺ demonstrated his love and his companionship and his really leadership in building those connections with people are through stories. Stories are always a great way to really relate, and it makes things so real and so relatable for us all today. And the Prophet ﷺ left us with so many incredible stories. And so I wanted to share a few of those with you today. So bear with me. So really, the couple of stories that I want to share today, because there's so many and we don't have that much time, are ones about how the Prophet ﷺ, number one, he expressed care for the worldly affairs of those around him and the spiritual affairs, of course, as well. And I emphasize worldly affairs because oftentimes we always hear about the spiritual affairs, right? And that's incredible and that's amazing. And I'll get to that, inshallah. But I do want to give an example of even worldly affairs, how the Prophet ﷺ would be there for his companions through things, even including, like loans or debts or things that we would imagine today someone telling us, well, why are you even in debt? Well, you did this to yourself, and that's because you got interested in this world, and that's because you brought this upon yourself. Whereas the Prophet ﷺ, that wasn't his attitude, right? When his companions were in trouble, whether it was something to do with their deen, whether it was something to do with their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it was something they themselves put themselves into because of their engagement in this world, whatever extent, the Prophet ﷺ was there for them. So you have this holistic relationship the Prophet ﷺ built with his companions, where he was just genuinely concerned for their well-being. And so you have, that there's an example where essentially the Prophet ﷺ was with a number of companions, and another companion comes up to him. And the Prophet ﷺ says around him, and he knowing the companions around him, always knowing, by the way, the situation, the intimate situation of companions around him because he was aware of what was going on. He says to the companions around him, تصدقوا عليه, give charity to this person, knowing that this person had, a certain debt or loan to pay off. And so فتصدق الناس عليه, the people around the Prophet ﷺ, when they were told to do this, they did that, right? That they gave sadaqah to this man, to the extent that despite the fact that this man had such a large loan, that they were able to pay that off. And it's just really the something as simple of a story as that, where the Prophet ﷺ turns to his companions and say, hey man, this person is in trouble, that this person has accumulated some debt. We're not asking why you put yourself in this situation. We're not asking, well, you're not saying you did this to yourself, right? The Prophet ﷺ is like, listen, he is our brother, he is our companion, he is part of our community, and we're going to help him out. And that's really, I think that's also extremely relevant today, because we might find ourselves in really weird situations, whether it's because of quarantine, social distancing, whether it's because we're just getting used to a new normal, whatever it is. We might have a lot of lows coming our way. We might have experienced them, we might still be experiencing them, or they might be coming at us the next few months, right? This really like uncomfortable low that, I don't get to graduate my high school. I've been looking forward to this moment for several years. This was my transition to college. I was building up for this. And yeah, it's a worldly concern, if that's what you want to call it, but that's something that is still worthy of reaching out to your brother or sister and saying, hey, listen, I know you're experiencing this low. I know that you were looking forward to this moment. I just want to let you know I'm there for you, right? Just as the Prophet ﷺ was there for his companions. And one thing that really also is in connection with these lows is the fact that the Prophet ﷺ always saw the good in people, despite the fact that they were going through lows, whether they're going through spiritual highs in regard to their iman and their faith, or whether they were struggling. And there was a companion, radiallahu anhu, that we would say that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, named Abdullah, who actually, he had essentially a drinking problem, where he would drink to the point where it happened so many times that when he was, being punished for it after the second, third, fourth time, a companion looks at this person who's being punished and says, basically, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala damn him, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curse him, because what is his problem? He just keeps falling back into this sin. And what does the Prophet ﷺ says? La til'anuhu, don't you, do not dare curse him. And the Prophet ﷺ, in saying that, says, verily, I know for a fact that he loves God and his messenger. The Prophet ﷺ knew that this man in his heart was that love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, love for the Prophet ﷺ, and that basically did everything. He knew the man had mistakes. The man himself knew he had mistakes, but he was coming back to the Prophet ﷺ. He was admitting, he was receiving his worldly punishment, and the Prophet ﷺ, that was enough for him, right? And so, so we might be going through lows. We might be doing things that we normally wouldn't do, but that does not mean that we should, we see someone struggling and then, turn around and say, well, I don't understand what's their problem. Why are they struggling with this? And, they just need to figure it out, right? But hey, listen, again, I know you're going, I know you're going through a difficult time, but I know that you and I believe in the same thing, and we have the same values, and that we're going to get through this together, just as the Prophet ﷺ did with all of his companions. And in that, just a couple of some of my favorite stories is that the Prophet ﷺ made everyone feel so special, to the point where you have a companion like Amr ibn al-As, who comes up to the Prophet ﷺ and says, essentially, yes, it was Amr ibn al-As. Just want to confirm. Sorry, brain is half on right now. And correct me if I'm wrong, Imam Tahir. But the companion comes to the Prophet ﷺ feeling pretty confident in themselves that, the Prophet ﷺ, loves me the most. Like, I know it, the way he talks to me, the way he interacts with me, I gotta be his favorite, right? We all have this feeling with one of our parents. We have it with like the sheikh in our community, our youth director, like, obviously I'm the favorite, right? And so, the companions, because the Prophet ﷺ made everyone feel so special, that's exactly how they feel. And so he comes up to the Prophet ﷺ and says, what? He says, essentially the way he's hinting at it is like, let's put this on the record, right? The Prophet ﷺ, let us all know, who's your favorite person. And to his surprise, perhaps dismay, the Prophet ﷺ says, who? Aisha, radiallahu anha, his wife. And so, I always like to imagine what's going on in this companion's head and think to himself that he's probably thinking to himself, okay, well, that doesn't really count. That's your wife. So he goes, who next? And the Prophet ﷺ, what does he say? Abuha, her father, right? The father of Aisha anha. And so, this story really symbolizes the fact that someone felt confident enough, the way the Prophet ﷺ made them feel so special that they were convinced that they were the only person the Prophet ﷺ could possibly love the most, right? And the Prophet ﷺ now openly admitting to the fact that, well, no, there's other people I love more. And really, that's what you want to be for other people. You want people to, when you meet them, when you talk to them, even if it's just a quick phone call or a quick text message, that when you're with them, you're fully with them, right? You want to be fully present and make people feel special and make people feel like they can always reach out to you at any point. In regard to that. And a story that also really demonstrates, again, just more specifically how the Prophet ﷺ was able to make people feel special is with a companion named Zahir. Now, Zahir radiallahu anhu was someone who was, essentially, you could call a Bedouin, right? He wasn't he didn't live within the city. So he would go out, live sort of a Bedouin life in terms of getting things from outdoors, doing hunting, agriculture, whatever it is, while the Prophet ﷺ was in the city. And now every time Zahir radiallahu anhu would come back from the badia, right, the wilderness, if you will, he'd visit the Prophet ﷺ and he'd always bring him gifts from the wilderness, right? So like all these vegetables, all these things unique to non-city life, and he'd present it to him. And subhanAllah, when the Prophet ﷺ, when he intended, every time, Zahir was about to leave Medina, the Prophet ﷺ, when seeing him, he would present him with, gifts from the city, things that you'd only find in a city. And the Prophet ﷺ once said, "Inna Zahiran badiyatuna wa nahnu hadiru," right? That Zahir radiallahu anhu is our wilderness, and we are his city. Just that statement alone, really, there's this person who's coming to you, and he doesn't live in the city. You're only seeing him, sometimes, maybe once or twice a year, whatever it is. You're not seeing him you're seeing him only on occasion. But every time you come, you exchange just a small gift, right? It's nothing special, right? We're talking about a few vegetables. We're talking about something very simple. And the fact that this exchange is occurring, and now the Prophet ﷺ is saying to this person that you are everything outside of the city, this whole world, this al-badiyah, everything outside of this civilization, this mini civilization we're living in, that is what you are to us. And everything you find within the city, we are everything to you, right? So talk about making someone feel very special, that you're basically everything to us. And Zahir radiallahu anhu was really touched by this, and you have just a really deep relationship between the two. And one of the stories with this companion is such that he was basically in the marketplace coming to sell his things that he collected from the wilderness, or every few months he comes to the marketplace, and the Prophet ﷺ at one point comes up as Zahir radiallahu anhu selling something, and he comes up from behind him, right? He comes up from behind him and holds him from, where in a position where he can't see him. Zahir can't see him, and so Zahir kind of is a bit surprised. That when our friends come up and just grab our eyes and cover our eyes, and you're like, please get off of me, what's happening, right? And so the Prophet ﷺ, does this to Zahir, and then he says, who is this? Leave me. But the second he noticed that it was the Rasul ﷺ, he straightened his back and he started to essentially press his back to the back of the Prophet ﷺ, because it's that immediate love, that connection that he had. It was that, oh my God, this is the Prophet of God. Please don't move. And he just wanted to shorten that distance between them as much as they could, to the point where he's pressing his back against him. And subhanAllah, what's really incredible about the story is that the Prophet basically started joking around with Zahir radiallahu anhu. And as he's holding him, as they're in the marketplace, the Prophet ﷺ pretends to be now selling Zahir. All right, I'm selling Zahir. Who wants to sell him? Who wants to buy him? Just messing around with him, because the Prophet ﷺ had that lightheartedness, that sense of humor. And Zahir was known to, or I should say, was not known to be the most handsome of men, right? And so this was something that he was very self-conscious of, where he said, well, basically that, oh, Prophet of Allah, if you're going to sell me, you're not really going to get much, bang for your buck. I'm not the best looking person. And the Prophet ﷺ says, like, full pause here, right? That the Prophet ﷺ says, verily in the sight of God, you are so valuable, you're so worthy. And so he takes this moment where there's a companion who's literally self-conscious about how he looks, and the Prophet just flips it on its head, right? But the Prophet is like, what? You are so worthy. I mean, being told by the Prophet of God that you're worthy to God, I mean, that's all you need in life, right? You got your key, you're good, right? And coming from the words of the Prophet, you can only imagine how much that meant to Zahid, how much he went from a moment of feeling like, man, who's gonna buy me, as a joke, to I'm so valuable in the sight of God. How that probably made him feel how incredibly, powerful or valuable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's really something that we can work on. Yes, we're not with each other 24/7 anymore, or, we're not physically contacting each other. We're not seeing each other once, in person for our masjid gatherings or for our halaqah gatherings or whatever it is. But you know what? We can still make people feel incredibly special. And that's something that we really should be able to take advantage of, especially in these last few nights. That, hey, you want to reach out, text a friend, by the way, like, thank you for everything you've done. I really appreciated this about you, right? And now it's a perfect time for this reflection where you're thinking to yourself, man, like, what am I missing out on now? How has my life changed? Well, my friend Rawa, my friend Sara, whoever, I really miss doing this with them. They always made me feel so happy when we went out. This friend would be the one to always remind me to go to the masjid. This friend, we used to always do this, and really reflecting on things that you especially miss about friends, and then sharing that with them and making them feel special, highlighting their strength and saying, that thank you, like, I love you, I miss you, and I really appreciate this about you. You make me a better person because of that. And that is really a key to building strong relationship, building those connections, and really embodying the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in doing so. So I have so many more stories I could go through, but unfortunately there's only so much time I have today. So I'll go ahead and conclude just in case I don't want to run over my time. Jazakallah khairan. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa alayhi wa sallam.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Tasneem, for all those delightful stories. Inshallah, Sister Noorun will be introducing our speaker.
Yes, thank you, Sister Tasneem, for delving into how our brothers and sisters are with us in these trying times. I think it's a really great takeaway of how important it is to care for one another, and honestly to check in on, your classmates or your peers who may be graduating or not, or, who may be going through something that you don't know. It's really important to, stay connected with our community. So thank you so much for taking out the time to speak with us. We understand you are 3 hours ahead, so I believe you have to run off for Suhoor, but just a quick thank you from the Tawaso team here for joining us. Our next speaker here is Brother Riyad Shamma, who is the founder and executive director of the Institute of Youth Development and Excellence. His work with the youth has been parallel to his work as an industrial engineer, counselor, and adjunct imam and khatib in Ohio and Northern Kentucky. It was in his capacity as a youth program developer, organizer, and counselor for ISNA's MINA and MSA that he found the need to develop a new concept of youth programming that more consistently and locally addresses the youth's needs. Brother Shamma will be discussing on how your local youth organization is with youth, which is quite fitting. And Brother Shamma, you can take it away.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm also very happy to welcome some of our Cincinnati crew. Our mentors and mentees have joined us, alhamdulillah. Thank you all for being here with us as well. And inshallah, hopefully we make some good connections actually across the continent. So you guys have a place to come visit and places to stay. Inshallah, I'm sure that we do as well. So again, just assalamu alaikum to everybody who's out there and watching. Inshallah, we benefit. And barakallahu feek for Imam Tahir and Sister Tasneem, your comments and your thoughts. And I think that it is a very important thing to reflect actually on this concept of not being alone, precisely because sometimes being alone is a good thing. Sometimes it's even necessary. The Prophet said, "I would go and take time specifically to be alone." Yeah, why we have a i'tikaf in the masjid, right? Is to have time between just us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think it's important that we Okay, that just because we're alone doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Okay, so sometimes being alone can be a good thing. Sometimes we need to choose to be alone, as a matter of fact. Okay, and I think it should be okay for us to be able to tell our family or anybody else around us, hey, I need some alone time. I want to spend some time just like me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't mean run off and hide and don't tell anybody where you went, right? Let people know, hey, I'm gonna be in the masjid. I'm gonna do ihtikaf tonight, or I'm gonna be in my room, or I'm gonna be in the basement. I just need some space, you know, to clear my mind, whatever the case is. So I do want to put that out there, that being alone isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, when being alone or being isolated, okay, because being isolated, we might have people around us, but we still feel alone. When that leads us to feeling overly sad and depressed, that's when things are problematic, right? And that's when we want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves in a meaningful way. And that's where a lot of these things come into play. So if we're blessed, as Imam Tahir mentioned, to have family around us, then alhamdulillah, we definitely want to make sure we're reaching out to our family, we're keeping ties good. There's a reason why one of the major sins in Islam is that we cut family ties. So it's very important that we always maintain family ties, even if they've done something harmful to us. Exactly like the story of Yusuf. None of our siblings have, you know, abandoned us in a foreign place and had us sold into slavery and so forth. So, you know, whatever harm that they might have done to us, inshallah, it's something we can forgive and get past to build those family ties. If we're not so blessed, maybe we don't have other siblings, maybe our parents are divorced, or maybe one or both of our parents have passed away. We may be in some difficult circumstances, and if we don't have that family, then hopefully, inshallah, we have friends. So as Sister Tasneem has mentioned, this idea of people who are there just to help us, just to be with us, to support us, not to judge us and so forth. Sometimes we may or may not have that, but inshallah, perhaps we have a local youth group that is in the city that we live. That could be part of our masjid, it could be a part of some other extended group. Here in Cincinnati, we have the youth Dawadi Youth Mentoring Program, alhamdulillah. We have a lot of our youth that are participating in that. But there's, you know, certainly a number of masajid youth programs. You guys have Tawaso, and I'm sure that there are others as well. And I want to say that these groups are ultimately here and present, and people join them and participate because they want to be connected. Now, before I go into a little bit more detail about that aspect, I want to cover something that was very profound when I learned about it, and I think it's something that we need to really internalize, and it's a little bit deep, so if you want to actually take a couple of notes here, I would encourage it, but it's something called the drama triangle. So the drama triangle is where all drama lives. So you know the expression that someone's being a drama queen and just getting all caught up in all kinds of drama and this and that and so forth, and it's something that in the reality nobody likes, right? Even the drama queen themselves, they don't actually like being in that state of drama, but perhaps that's a place where they find an ability to get people to pay attention to them and so forth, because we all have a need to be seen, to be heard. And so if the only way I can get it is by being dramatic about everything, great, then that's what I'll do. But the reality is none of us like to live in the drama triangle. But a triangle has 3 points, and the 3 points of the drama triangle are being a victim, being a persecutor, and being a rescuer. And sometimes we can rotate between all 3 of those. Now, the central element of the drama triangle is avoidance of responsibility. Okay, and that's why people are in a state of drama, because they're avoiding responsibility. The victim says what? There's nothing I could do about it. People just keep picking on me. People call me names, and I was helpless. I could do nothing at all about my circumstance, right? I'm just a victim here. And they're doing what? They're refusing to own any responsibility for their circumstance. Okay, it doesn't mean that bad things don't happen or that people haven't mistreated you, but the victim mentality says, I'm completely blameless for any responsibility. All this stuff happens to me and there's nothing I could do about it, okay? And we know that's simply not the case. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you're being oppressed, then he created the earth wide, then travel someplace, be someplace else where you're not being oppressed. So we never have an excuse to just play the victim card and say, there's nothing I could do about it. The counter to that is the persecutor. The persecutor is always blaming. They're shifting their responsibility onto others. You know, I wouldn't have had to hit you if you didn't make me angry. You insulted me, and so I had to shout at you and curse you. You did this to me, and so I had to do that. You know, my boss was being a real jerk, so, you know, that's why I had to go out and do these other bad things, right? I refused to own my responsibility, and I put my bad behavior onto other people. And that blaming, that shifting of my responsibility onto others is what the persecutor is all about. Again, they're avoiding their responsibility by trying to put on other people. And then the third one is the rescuer. And the rescuer is the one who is saying, you know, I want to go out and help pick up other people's responsibility. So they're typically responding to the victim and they're saying, hey, don't worry, Sheikh Alauddin, I'll take care of your problems for you. You're right. All those community members are picking on you and no one's being nice and no one's treating you well. Don't worry, I'll go talk to them for you. And I'm just enabling the victim to stay a victim by picking up responsibility that's not mine, and oftentimes ignoring my own responsibilities in the meantime, okay? And so this is that drama triangle, and we might do all three. You know, I get picked on at work, and then I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling the victim. My boss is yelling at me, he's giving me a hard time, even though I'm working hard, it's not fair, but there's nothing I can do about it because he might fire me or whatever, so I'm just playing the total victim. And then I get home, and because I'm upset and feeling victimized at work, I turn around and start becoming a persecutor at home. And I start yelling at my family saying, how come this house is a mess and I'm out there working hard and you guys can't even keep the place clean and you guys aren't doing anything, and I just blame and I'm persecuting and I'm causing all kinds of fitna at home by shoving responsibility and not taking any myself, right? Not following that prophetic model of helping at home and working at home. You know, and then maybe I turn to the television to rescue me. I'm just gonna sit down in front of the TV, put my feet up and say, okay, TV, you know, rescue me and take me away from all my problems because I'm gonna ignore everything, right? And so I might go through all three of those things myself. So I mention this because when we feel sad or depressed because we're alone or isolated, chances are we're standing in the drama triangle, right? And what role do you think we're playing? That's right, for all of you who said victim, victim. Because I'm saying, well, what could I do? I'm just so alone and sad. Nobody's calling me. Nobody's reaching out to me. Even the imam who gives all these great khutbahs hasn't called me once to see how I'm doing, okay? Right, so I'm playing the victim. I'm saying there's nothing I can do. Poor me, I'm just sitting here all by myself. Nobody's reaching out to me. Nobody's being sincere, okay? And then I can fall into a negative cycle where, you know, I start to feel isolated and alone and I feel bad and depressed. And then when somebody finally does maybe reach out or maybe they send a Facebook message or something, I'm like, oh, really? That's what you're gonna do? Send me a smiley face? Send me a WhatsApp? You're not even gonna call? Oh, you're gonna call, but then you say you have to go quickly? Oh, but then, and it's always, and then I start to react harshly and they're like, oh man, dude, okay, then forget it. Okay, I was just checking on you, but you know, I didn't want the drama, I'm out of here. And then I feel more, I feel bad, worse because it's like, well, you know, you hung up on me or you got off and it wasn't a good conversation. And then, you know, you're less likely to call me back and then no one else calls and I feel worse. And the next time someone does try to reach out, maybe I react even harsher. And it's this negative cycle where I'm locked into this drama triangle between victim and persecutor and so forth. And so it's important that we understand that we always have an ability to take some action, okay? And, you know, the beautiful thing is that everyone's not going to respond, you know, perfectly. You know, I might say, what action could I take? If I'm feeling alone, if I'm feeling isolated, what action can I take? Well, I can reach out to somebody. I can be the one to call. Why do I have to wait for somebody to call me? Okay. Oh, I don't want to bother anybody and so forth. Those are excuses. Reach out, call somebody, because it's a matter of establishing those connections. And here's a case where your local youth group is an excellent place to reach out to. Again, maybe we have the family, maybe we have the good friends, or maybe we don't have those things. But we are typically living someplace we have a youth group. Now, if we've been a part of the youth group, hopefully we have some friends in that youth group. We can reach out to them, talk about some good times we had in the past and kind of rekindle some friendships and conversations. Maybe you say, you know, yeah, I've got a youth group. I've gone once or twice, but not really. Maybe there was someone that you felt you had some kind of a connection to. You know, oftentimes there's someone like, you know, I've only been once or twice. I don't really know Ahmed, but I like him. You know, he was cool to kind of hang around. You know what, let me just reach out to Ahmed, even though he may not even remember who I am. But I can call him and say, hey, Ahmed, probably don't remember me. I came last like 3 months ago. You know, and who knows, you may be surprised. Ahmed be like, oh, dude, I totally remember you. I was really sad you didn't come back. Okay, maybe like, I've got a youth group, but I've never really been. I've heard about it. I know the youth director is so-and-so, or the person in charge is so-and-so, but I don't really know anything else. Reach out to that person and let them know. Say, hey, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Alauddin, I know you had this group out there. I've never participated. I'm really shy, actually, but I'm really feeling isolated. What can I do, right? And then let him take the next stage to go, you know what? Let me introduce you. Brother Shafiq, he's an awesome guy. I know he's really gonna like you. Sister Nuran, she's really amazing. I know you guys will connect really well. We've got this other guy, after you talk to him a little bit, find out, oh, you're into robotics. Our brother Jason over here, he's completely into robotics. And I think you guys might hit it off really well. Why don't I set up a three-way call and I'll introduce you and we can kind of have like a little three-way meeting initially, kind of help you overcome that and so forth. In other words, you're doing what? You're taking the responsibility that you can, okay? And the responsibility on us is reach out. If I'm feeling down, I'm feeling alone, I'm feeling whatever, okay, let me reach out. Maybe Sheikh Alauddin doesn't respond back to me. That doesn't mean I go back into victimhood mode, right? Let me make that excuse for my brother. I'm sure he's swamped. He's so busy. Our imams have so many people calling them. Let me see who else, I might be able to reach out to, okay? And reach out to somebody else. If you're watching this, you see at least 12 names on the screen. So, reach out to every single one of them. Say, somebody's got to respond to me, and I'm sure that somebody will, inshallah. And so it's that idea of taking some ownership, right? Taking ownership of our lives and saying that I want to be connected and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears the call of everyone who makes a call. Allah doesn't leave us alone when we are sincerely calling to Him and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. But we have to do our part, right? As we know in the famous hadith, if you come to Allah walking, He comes to you running. But it's just that function of us making the effort to reach out and take some action to do something, and in doing so, then inshallah, you'll find a good, a very good response. And I want to just kind of touch back now on one of the things that Sister Tasneem was saying with the Sahaba who was in debt and came and asked and said, hey, I need some help. And Prophet ﷺ told the companions, let's help him, right? This is a perfect example of people not being in the drama triangle, right? The drama triangle, people were what? Blaming. They were the ones who said, wait, how did he get into debt? What did he owe the money for? Was he irresponsible when he took the loans? Was he irresponsible in trying to pay it back? Let's check his credit score before we put any money in for him. Who's to say if we don't pay these debts, he's going to turn around and go do it again, right? All of that's persecuted, right? Those are the people that are just blaming. The people who were outside the drama triangle said, hey, my brother's in need. Allah gave me some rizq and some provision. I can help. Here's the amount that I can help with. And they do that. Same thing applies to us. I'm sure every single one of us is seeing dozens, if not hundreds, of requests for donations. And Shaitan is going to come to us, our own nafs might come to us and say, well, this group has a huge following. I'm sure they'll have lots of people that are donating to them. Or, I hardly have anything and times are really tough and, we've lost my job or things are difficult in our family and so forth. And, I really can't afford to give anything. And, there's a bunch of rich doctors out there. We'll let them give and they can support the organizations or whatever that excuse is. And that's just a matter of not owning responsibility to say, you know what, I need to do something. Hey, my messenger is making a call for money. Okay, let me donate something. You know what, let me do a chore for somebody and donate the $5 or $10 that I can earn so that I can take some ownership in trying to make sure my message is here, that my youth group stays here, that these causes that I believe in and that I want to support can have that support because I want to take that responsibility. And that's really my message, is that I want us, as we're sitting and we're reflecting, and again, maybe we're feeling isolated, alone, maybe feeling a little depressed, a little bit sad, overwhelmed by all of these things, to ask ourselves, what can I do to change my circumstance? Okay. Yeah, you know what? It's awesome if you have somebody in your life, if you have a mentor, if you have a close family or friend who's reaching out to you and following up with you and asking how you're doing and spending that extra time with you and so forth. That's wonderful. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you with people like that in your lives. But if you don't, get over it and you reach out to somebody. You work to build that relationship. Because really by Allah, I can tell you that most of the people on here And I say this because I know some of you personally very well, alhamdulillah, but you are all good people who would be willing to help, right? There's not, of the 10 to 15 on here that I know personally, I'm sure that not a one of you would refuse to start a friendship with somebody. If I were to call and say, hey, this brother, this sister called, they're feeling really isolated, they really don't have any friends, you haven't met them yet, but could we do a three-way call and introduce you and talk with them, get to know them? I am sure that one or more people would be willing to say, yeah, absolutely. You know what, I'm really busy, but we could do it at this time. I've got an hour, why don't we set up a call over here? Okay, and that's the point, is that when we reach out, we do our part, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open the rest of the way for us. And that's what I want us to really focus on, is what's my responsibility? What can I do about my circumstance? And maybe it's limited. Maybe I'm 13 years old and I say, look, I've got limited options. I don't have my own phone. You have my own computer, and so forth. But there's a home phone, there's a computer in the house, you can use it to reach out, to others. And inshallah, in doing so, you'll find that loneliness is taken away that we may be feeling, and we start to build those connections. And who knows, maybe this is the very best thing that ever happened to you. Maybe you're going to make your very best friend in the world now while you're shut in at home, but you develop that connection. So I'll leave it with that. Any questions, of course, inshallah, I'll be here. Like Qiyam, I'm also 3 hours behind, so I will have to break in a little bit here to grab a little bit of support, but inshallah, I can stay on it for a little bit longer. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Brother Riyadh, for your time. And I know you're well ahead of us. So again, we appreciate you.
Alhamdulillah.
And thank you again for really highlighting the importance of the youth groups and the youth organizations and just the organizations in general that are there. And I can say this comfortably on behalf of the Tawaso organization. If there's a youth or even a non-youth who just is really stuck in whatever that predicament is and needs somewhere, wholeheartedly, I'm telling you, you can reach out to Tawaso through any medium, through, the website, the Facebook, to Nurun directly, to myself directly, to anyone here, and use us as an outlet. And it's not, that offer isn't just exclusive to Tawaso, but any organization you're familiar with, whether it's the MCA youth, the SBIA youth, the WVMA youth, BAMRAC, it doesn't matter. They're there for you, essentially. I want to say on that note, and speaking of youth, and speaking of Tawaso, one of the things that I love about Tawaso, and one of the reasons why I get so excited when I hear the name Tawaso, is because they take the youth on these amazing journeys throughout the year to really connect with their identity and their Islamic history. They go to Umrah trips and they go to like Morocco and they go to Turkey and they do these amazing things. But I'm not qualified to tell you about it because I haven't gone on those trips because I'm not a youth anymore, despite what. But unfortunately, I'm not a youth anymore, but I do have a very special youth who is with us today. He actually attended the last Morocco trip. And I know we're not traveling now because of, coronavirus, but inshallah, once we're traveling again, Tawaso will continue to offer these amazing trips. So without further ado, I want to introduce Brother Omar Wasim. He's a 16-year-old photographer, videographer. He's a filmmaker, and he is, mashallah, very talented and gifted in his craft. He had the pleasure of going on the last Tawaso Morocco trip, and he's going to kind of take over and show you a sweet trailer that he put together on that trip. Brother Omar?
So yeah, assalamu alaikum. Thanks for that intro. Wow. My name is Omar Wasim, and as you heard, I do photography and filmmaking in my free time. Last December, Sheikh Al-Bakri and Tawaso invited me on a trip to Morocco so that I could document a group tour that they were having. As you can imagine, it was pretty crazy, 14 days. And right now I'm working on a full documentary that's releasing in the summer. But in the meantime, I put together a trailer, which I'm gonna go ahead and play right now. Back in December of 2019, Sheikh Al-Bakri and Tawaso invited me to fly out to Morocco to film a documentary on experiencing Moroccan culture. And now 14 days, 10 cities, a night in the Sahara Desert, and 500 gigabytes of footage later, I can easily say that this was one of the craziest things I've ever been a part of.
we finished riding ATVs. We have an hour until sunset, and we're about to start riding camels now. So yeah, I guess that's it for now. Back to you, Shafiq.
MashaAllah, that's an awesome little trailer. I have two questions before we let you go, Ahmad. You're 16 years old, right?
Right.
My first question is, how did you convince your parents to let you fly halfway across the world to go to Morocco by yourself, essentially, without them?
In August, I asked if I could go and be like part of the group itself, and they said no. But then after Sheikh asked me to come and do like the photography and like the behind the scenes or whatever, he actually went and convinced my parents himself, and he convinced them essentially to do all these forms, which was like signing my life away for 2 weeks. And yeah, he agreed to take responsibility for me, and so because of that, I got to go.
MashaAllah, seems like it was all worth it. And my second question is, MashaAllah, it seemed in that video like Sheikh Ala is a lot more youthful than I am. Convinced the Sheikh to roll down the sandhill.
Actually, I think Sheikh was one of the first people to roll down himself. So I mean, on the trip, you know, he spent a lot of time with the youth, and it felt more like he was one of us than, you know, any other normal instance that you would feel at like a masjid or whatever.
SubhanAllah, man, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, and we're all looking forward to the full documentary that's going to come out later in the summer, inshallah. Thanks again, Ahmad, for showcasing that.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Inshallah, we're going to continue with our line of speakers now. Our next speaker is going to talk to us, inshallah, about the story of Maryam, Maryam alayhi salam, and how even, you know, someone like Maryam felt alone despite her having Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having the angels, having, you know, all that divine support, but, you know, she still went through a moment or moments where she felt like she was alone. So our next speaker, inshallah, is going to be Sister Bhavana Camille, who accepted Islam soon after graduating from UC Berkeley. She traveled overseas to Cairo, Egypt for a few years to study Arabic and Islamic studies. She's an active member of MAS, the Muslim American Society Bay Area chapter, where she serves as the chapter president. And she'll be talking to us, inshallah, about the story of Maryam. Sister Bhavana.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his messenger, his companions, and those who follow him. Not to call you out, Shafiq, my name is pronounced Bhavna.
Bhavna, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm not on the East Coast, but it is starting to get a little late for the.
No, Me too. Me too. And
do
that's why I
apologize.
have my notes,
I'm
because at
sorry.
this
My
time of
sincerest
the
apologies.
night, it's hard for me to. It's okay. It's okay. It took me years and years to get the courage to correct people when they mispronounce my name. So I'm
No,
exerting.
please do, and I sincerely apologize again.
It's okay. It's okay. So I was tasked with telling you about the story of Maryam, and this was truly intimidating because no one can do justice to the story of Maryam alayhi salam. I mean, she's the greatest woman to have ever lived. We are told by the Prophet ﷺ that there were 4 greatest women, and she was the greatest from among them. So there's no way to do justice to her story, especially in this time, and especially, like Shafiq said, at this time of night. It's going to be hard to do justice. And in the interest of time, I'm just give a few little just I wanted to give a few like preambles to this, that I won't be going over all the hadith, I won't be going over all the ayat. I'm gonna try to like put the story in my own words, and put the lessons in my own words, just for the sake of in the interest of time. And I'm going to do a few things. First, I'll go over the story, summarize the story a little bit, point out some things we should notice, and then just briefly go over a few lessons. You know, if you were to Google like lessons from the life of Maryam, oh my gosh, it would be never ending. And I did this. I Googled like Maryam in the Quran, Maryam in the Hadith, lessons from the life of Maryam, right? Just to get a bunch of ideas. And in the end, I was so overwhelmed that what I did was I just read the ayats from the Quran, and I just boiled it down to what spoke to me. And there were like 3 main lessons that I got. So that's what I'll be sharing with you, inshallah. So a few things about Maryam before we talk about her story. She's unique in a lot of ways. Of course, we already talked about the fact that the Prophet ﷺ said that she's the greatest woman to have ever lived. The other thing to notice, maybe you've already noticed this, is that she's the only woman to be named by name in the Quran. So if you think about all the other women in the Quran, it's the wife of this prophet, Imra'at, this prophet, or Imra'at, this person, right? The woman of, or the wife of this person, the sister of Musa, the mother of Musa alayhi salam. There are a lot of other women, right? The Zawja of Adam alayhi salam, Hawa, isn't mentioned by name in the Quran. So there's all these really, really important women, including some of the other greatest women, right? The wife of Fir'aun is mentioned in the Quran, but never by name. Maryam alayhi salam is the only woman to be named by name in the Quran. She has an entire chapter named after her, and the chapter, Surah Maryam, isn't just about Maryam. There's stories of so many other prophets in that chapter, yet the chapter is named after her. And there's so many other special things about her that we'll talk about. So let's talk about the story. If you yourself want to read about the story of Maryam alayhi salam, you can't just look in Surah Maryam. That gives part of the story, but the sort of the beginning part of the story from before she was born is actually in Surah Ali Imran. So the 3rd chapter of the Quran, which is Ali Imran, which is translated to the family or the people of Imran. This is actually where her story begins. And the story begins from before she was born. So Maryam alayhi salam was part of a noble family. And it says in the Quran that she's from this noble lineage. She's from, in Al Imran in ayahs 33 and 34, can be translated loosely to, indeed Allah chose Adam and Nuh and the family of Ibrahim and the family of Imran over all the world's descendants, some of them from others, and Allah is all hearing and all knowing, meaning that she descended from this line of prophets. Of course, we're all descendant from Adam alayhi salam, but more specifically from the family of Ibrahim and the family of Musa. And her father was Imran. So Al Imran, the chapter that this is named after, was her father. Her mother, who is also mentioned in the chapter, but also not by name, was Henna, or Hannah, sometimes translated as Hannah in English, but Henna. And when Henna was pregnant with Maryam, there was a situation that it seemed like there weren't going to be other descendants from this family who could care for the temple. Now, remember at that time, like the Muslims at that time were Bani Israel, right? The people who were following Musa. So like what we refer to now as the Jewish people, they were like the Muslims of that time. So when I say their temple, it's the masjid, right? So it seemed like there weren't going to be other descendants. Her uncle was Zakaria, we'll talk about that in a second, who did not have children, the Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam. And this family, Imran, Zakaria, and Hinna, all of them were from this family that were in charge of the temple, and they didn't have descendants. So it seemed like no one was going to be able to take care of the temple, and by extension, sort of preserve the message and preserve the deen, right? Do the da'wah. So they were worried. Also, when Hinna was pregnant with Maryam, her husband passed away. So Imran passed away. So now she was on her own. She was pregnant. They were all worried. She made a dua, and she made a dua that's beautiful, beautiful. And this dua was in the following ayah, in ayah 35 of Surah Al-Imran. And the wife of Imran said, "My Lord, indeed I have pledged to you what is in my womb, dedicated for your service. So accept this from me. Indeed, you are all hearing and all knowing." So she's pregnant, right? And imagine, I mean, most of you are youth, so you haven't experienced this, but maybe you've seen other people, or you know your parents also, they have all these hopes and dreams for their kids, right? Maybe they'll grow up to be this, they'll grow up to be that. What will they look like? And what will they accomplish? Henna isn't thinking about those things. She's thinking about the service of her deen, and she's thinking, whatever is in my womb, I dedicate to the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to carry on this message. So this is her intention, right? And of course, implicit in that intention is that she's having a son, because at that time, the caretakers of the masjid were men. This is a role that was assigned only to men. So this is what she's imagining. So she makes this dua. She's confident it will be accepted. And it is accepted, but not in the way she thinks. So she gives birth, and she gives birth to a daughter. And she says to Allah, of course, Allah knows, right? But she says, "Oh Allah, I've given birth," I'm paraphrasing here, but I've given birth to a girl, and a girl is not like a boy, right? Of course, Allah knows this. We all know this. But she's pointing out, like, but I specifically made this dua for a child to be in service of the masjid, and I have a girl, right? So, and we'll talk about the lessons a little bit afterwards. So she gives birth to this girl. Eventually, Maryam doesn't have a father. She's given in the care of her uncle, Zakaria, who some say is her mother's, let's see, I think her father's sister's husband. But anyways, uncle, right, within the family. So she's given in the care of Zakaria. And she grows up in that care, and eventually she on her own decides to devote her life to the masjid. So she takes a corner of the masjid in like the eastern part. This is referred to in one of the ayat, the Sharqiyya, an eastern part of the masjid, and she takes a room, a place for isolation called the mihrab. And it's interesting, when we think mihrab, we're thinking in the masjid where the imam prays, but mihrab comes from the word harb, right? And harb, or the same root as harb, and harb is war, right? So it's weird, like, what's the connection between this room in the masjid and war? And the connotation is that this is a place where you go to wage war on yourself, right? So she decided, almost like what the Prophet ﷺ would do in the cave of Hira during Ramadan, which is what this month we're experiencing right now, that he would go in isolation to meditate, to purify himself. This is what she decided to dedicate her life to, not just a month out of the year. She said, I'm going to isolate myself from my family, from people, and go to this war room, basically, right? And fight myself and purify myself. So this is what she devoted her life to. And Zakaria would visit her, right? He was, of course, taking care of her. So he would enter, and sometimes he would go and he would find this food. And I'm sure you're familiar with this ayah, that he would go and find this food and say, where did this food come from? And there's a difference of opinion about what this means. Does this mean that the food itself was the type of food that was unexpected in that season? Or is it just surprising that she had food? Whatever it is, the more common opinion is that it was just that there was food there, but she's not going out and getting it, right? She's isolated. So he's like, where is this food coming from? And she doesn't say, I got it from Allah, or, of course, Allah is taking care of me. She says something, though, more general. She says, it is from Allah. She doesn't say it's for me. She says, it is from Allah. Indeed, Allah provides for whom he will without account. So she makes it a general lesson, right? And Zakaria alayhi salam is a prophet. So it's not like she needs to be teaching Allah, teaching Zakaria alayhi salam about Allah, but she is reaffirming again that this isn't about her, right? She's fighting against herself. This is a lesson in who Allah is, and Allah takes care of who he wills, of everybody, and he gives to who he wills. So then the other part of the story takes up in Surah Maryam. So the story in Al Imran sort of ends here, and then the rest of it's in Surah Maryam. So that if you want to read the rest of the story, it's there. And this is about her having Isa alayhi salam, her son. So the angel Jibril comes to her in the form of a man, and she's been in isolation, and one of the characteristics, like striking characteristics about her, is her modesty and her humility. So not only does she not have a husband or has not had relationships, she doesn't really come into contact with people generally, but especially not men. And Jibril alayhi salam comes in a very handsome human form, so she's a little weary of him, so she seeks refuge in Allah from him, and then he tells her that I've come here to tell you the news of a son, that you're going to have a son. And she's shocked. Imagine, right? Not only is she doesn't have a husband or relationship with any man, but she's been in isolation, and she's been focused on like the exact opposite, right? Like her whole life has been about sort of devoting herself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not the worldly things. And then suddenly she's told that she's pregnant, which is the result of one of the most worldly things, right? Which is like this human intimate relationship. So of course she's completely shocked. And so before she is to give birth, she goes to a far off place. A lot of us, I think, are familiar with this story. She goes to this far off place. It's very difficult. All childbirth is difficult, of course. So it's very difficult. She's 16 years old, right? Some of you are probably 16, right? So she's 15, 16 years old. She's going through this. She's in so much pain, but also like the trauma of thinking about what will people say, right? It's not that the dunya is her concern, but she represents this family. She's devoted her life to the masjid. She's part of this noble lineage, and she's thinking this lineage, and this is happening to me, right? So she's just concerned that what's going to happen. So all these concerns, this anxiety, this pain, and she says, which is so interesting, you don't expect this. And again, we'll talk about this in a second, but you don't expect these kind of words to come out of someone like this. But she says, oh, I wish I had died before this and was forgotten, was in oblivion, right? SubhanAllah, you don't think of people like this say, oh, I wish I had died, right? But this is an indication. She's not saying, I wish I would die, or I would, wa'udhu billah, like do harm to myself. She's like, if only I hadn't been alive so long to experience this kind of thing. Like this is so difficult. So when she says this, it's not an indication of her helplessness or giving up on the mercy of Allah. Again, we'll talk about this, but just an indication of how much pain she was in, what a struggle she was going through, that even someone of her status would think like this, like, I just wish this had never happened to me, right? So, and a lot of you can maybe relate to this kind of anguish. I just wish this weren't happening to me, right? I wish I weren't in this situation. So she's in this situation. A voice tells her to drink from the stream below her, shake the palm tree, and get fresh dates. And there's so much to be said about that, right? People say, oh, shake the palm tree, you have to take responsibility. And so there's so many lessons. After she gives birth, she returns to her people. They're of course surprised that she has a baby. And the Prophet Isa alayhi salam is the one from the cradle to actually answer them, to say that he's a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so I'll end the story here, and we'll notice a few things. So one is a few things to notice before we talk about the lessons is in how many ways she like broke the mold, right? I mean, as a woman, first of all, she was devoted to the masjid at a time where it was only men. It was only men and boys. So she kind of broke that barrier in her time, right? That she was accepted, and it was okay for her to do that. Again, she's named by name in the Quran, and this broke barriers and maybe cultural barriers at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it was considered sort of impolite to. It wasn't that these women in the Quran weren't important, but it was considered a little impolite to name a woman by her name, right? That it was like, how can you be so informal or so familiar with me that you're going to say my name, right? So this is why you don't have any other women in the Quran named by name, but she was. So this must have been like sort of strange for the people at the time. Like, wow, this woman is named by name. And it's not even saying Isa alayhi salam, right? He's referred to as Ibn Maryam, which is another thing, right? That people are always mentioned as the son of their father. Even right now, we get our last names from the last name of our father, right? And Arabs have this thing that you have your name, Ibn or Bin, and then your father's name, right? In so many cultures, all these, I don't know if you ever noticed, last name Stephen's son or Robin's son, it's the son of Stephen, the son of Robin, right? So it's always the father. Isa alayhi salam, a prophet, is always referred to as the son of his mother. Another like sort of cultural barrier shattering, right? And then think about the fact that she's the most revered woman of all time, not just in our faith, but in Christianity as well, right? So revered. There's always an image of her. And she was a single mom. She was without a father. She was adopted by her uncle. She was in isolation, right? But despite all these things, she's so revered. So let's get to the lessons. And let me see how much time do I have left, Shafiq? I want to get through about 4 minutes. Okay.
About around 4 or 5 minutes, inshallah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about these three lessons that just stood out at me as I was reading these ayahs. One, Allah is the best of planners, right? The mother of Maryam had this great plan. She's like, oh, I got it all figured out, right? We have no more descendants, no one else to take care of the masjid. I got it figured out. I'm having a baby. This baby will take care of the masjid. And then boom, she has Maryam alayhi salam, right? I sort of hesitate to bring this analogy because it's nothing like the same, but I was just introducing my daughter to Star Wars. And, like Anakin is born and he's supposed to bring balance to the Force. I don't know if anybody's going to get this reference, right? And he doesn't, he's like Darth Vader, right? But then his son brings balance to the Force, right? And that was the prophecy. Okay, so this is nothing like Maryam, but Maryam's mother had planned that she would be the one, right? And in many ways she was the one to serve the masjid, but she brought Isa alayhi salam, right? So you have a plan, but Allah's the best of planners. Right now, with the shelter in place coronavirus, you had a bunch of plans, right? They were all shattered, right? You were planning to graduate, you were planning to go on this trip. My daughter was going to do this backpacking trip. It just got canceled this summer. All these plans, right? But Allah's the best of planners. Like, you don't know what's going to come out of this. It's hard to see it right now, and it might take a while to see it, but you'll see that if Allah is doing this, it means that there's something better, right, in place. And so that's one thing to learn from this. The other is, even as a young person, you can make a difference. I mean, Maryam alayhi salam was the niece of a prophet, right? She was the niece of Zakaria alayhi salam. And even she was sort of the encouragement for him to make dua for a son. So when she said to him that Allah provides to whom he wills, that right after that in the surah is when Zakaria makes the dua for a child. And so he's a prophet, right? He knows, of course, but her reminding him caused him to make that dua for a child and then have the child who was Yahya, right? Another prophet alayhi salam. So even as a young person, you might feel like you're not in charge. You're the one who's young, but you, interestingly, in this situation, may be better suited to help, those who are older than you in this situation, right? So you have a role to play. You understand the online stuff. You understand the dynamics. You're flexible. You can learn new things really quickly. You can inspire those who are older than you and to do something positive, right? Or to feel positive. And the last one is the theme of this Qiyam, which is you are not alone. Maryam alayhi salam self-isolated. She chose to be alone. And even when she was in her darkest time, she knew that Allah was with her. Allah supported her every bit of the way, right? Guided her through all these steps and never left her side. And I want to, because we're running out of time, I just want to leave you with this, that of course Maryam was special. Maryam was the most special, the greatest of all time. But the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supported her and helped her wasn't because she was special. It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is special, right? And this is the same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who took care of Maryam is waiting for you, is waiting for you to reach out to him, and he will take care of you, right? He's waiting for you to ask. He's waiting for you to beg. It's not like your parents. Like, I have a 7-year-old kid and he'll ask me again and again, Mommy, when's the Lego coming? When's Amazon shipment coming? When is this coming? When is that? He asks me, and I'm like, stop asking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves it when you ask, right? He's begging you to ask him. So run to him, beg him. Again, he didn't help Maryam because Maryam was special, even though she is. He helped because he's special, and he's the same Allah who's there for you. So I know you feel alone. It's hard, and people are telling you, look at the bright side and look at the good and look at the bad, but it's, look at the benefits that can come out of this. I know it's hard mentally to be handling all that's going on. So besides depending on all these other people who are there for you, run to Allah. This is the time, right, where all these other people are distanced from you and Allah is even closer to you, right? So run to Allah. Allah is there for you. The Lord of Maryam alayhi salam will take care of you too, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan.
Thank you so much, Sister Pavna, for the story of Maryam. I know it's really hard to always, limit what takeaways you can get from, Maryam alayhi salam, because there's just so many. But I think you really nailed it, especially for our youth here. We are in such an interesting time that I don't think any of us were ever prepared to navigate through. For all you high school seniors who are planning to graduate and go off to college, or seniors in college, I was one of you guys. I still am. But essentially, we're trying to navigate these trying times of like, oh, we had all these plans and they just got removed. And it's a great reminder that, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners. So there's obviously a greater, good coming out of here. And I think it's just something that you really have to push through and to get to really understand that. And it might be really hard just because, you're like, oh, wow, I'm not having my senior year experience or whatever it may be. And I love how you ended it on, like in how Maryam alayhi salam was in isolation, but she was not alone. And ironically enough, we are all in isolation. It's ordained by our government, but we are not alone, like in the sense that we do have our family and we do have our community, but more importantly, we still have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, we are in the last 10 days. So this is a better time than any to turn to your Lord in these trying times. So thank you for that, Sister Pavna. And now we have Imam Thabit Anani, who will be speaking on Angels Are With You. Imam Thabit obtained his ijazah in the Quran from Jordan, and along the way has acquired tremendous knowledge in fiqh, tafsir, Arabic grammar, fundamentals of faith, logic, and critical thinking, and the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. He has been serving the Muslim communities in California for the past 7 years and has held positions as an imam, teacher, and program director of various Islamic institutions. He opened the youth center My Deen in Fresno, where I hear is a very rapid growth of youth interaction there, so that's exciting, and is in the process of building a campsite between Northern and Southern California, where inshallah, with the help of Sheikh Alauddin Bakri, maybe Tawasul youth can potentially visit and join. So without further ado, I present to you Imam Thabit.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Nuran. I really appreciate this introduction. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Yes, My Deen is a growing community because subhanallah, when other people in the Bay Area and in Southern California, they're like usually thinking, what's happening in the middle, right? Fresno, Visalia, those little cities, but there's big stuff happening in small cities, believe it or not, alhamdulillah. So we're blessed here in the Central Valley. It's a growing place and it's a growing Muslim community. In fact, with the expensive life that's occurring in the north and the south, many people are moving. We had people, like, because I served at WVMA in the Bay Area, I've seen people who were there with us who moved to Fresno. Like, hey, what are you doing here? What brought you to Fresno? People think that it's farms and cows and stuff, but there's much more happening here, alhamdulillah. Okay, so speaking of we're not alone, today I will talk about the angels. The angels are when we think about the angels, they're like this mystical, mysterious creation of Allah that we cannot see. We know that they see us, but we don't see them. هي ترى ولا ترى, the angels, as Imam Ibn Hajar says. So subhanallah, I will start off with, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to ask a question and respond to the question. Okay, just to keep you guys awake, I need your attention, inshallah. I know it's late and some of you are, I know you want to wake up and you want to hear something exciting, inshallah. So there's nothing more exciting than angels. Okay. So the first question I want to pose is, the first question, what are the angels? What are they created of or from? So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says in the hadith, in the authentic hadith, that خُلِقَتِ الْمَلَائِكَ مِن نُور, the angels were created from light. Now the beautiful thing here, I just want to point out something very important. The beautiful thing about Islam and our religion is we bring evidence for everything. We don't speak from our minds. I don't have to sit here and make effort to create things that interest you. It's already interesting. It's already amazing. It's all in the Quran, in the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So any question you think of, you will find an evidence for it. And I will provide an answer and an evidence right away, right after each other, inshallah. So they are created from light. That spectrum of light is something that we cannot see. We know the visibility of light is very small compared to the discovered light by science already. So they are something beyond, subhanAllah. We only have one evidence of what forms they take. Now, how do they look? Okay, that's another question. We have in the hadith, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, actually, the first time he saw Angel Jibreel, he was in his real form. And the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam describes him in the hadith is very interesting. He says he has 600 wings. So do the angels have wings? Yes, they do. 600 wings. And in one description in the hadith, it says that each wing is the size of from the east to the west. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw Angel Jibreel the first time, when he was on the top of the mountain in the cave of Hira, he looked everywhere. If you looked west, east, north, he said, I looked in all directions, and Angel Jibreel was filling the horizons. So it's like, can you just imagine? This is a creation that's actually larger than planet Earth. But subhanallah, we don't, like when we think about the hadith that Angel Jibreel came to Prophet Muhammad and embraced Prophet Muhammad. So it must be that Angel Jibreel downsized or just, came closer to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he hugged him. And note, Islam started with a hug. Angel Jibreel told Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, read, said, Ma ana biqari, and then he hugged him. And then they speak of Islam and terrorism. Well, our Islam started with a beautiful embrace. Alhamdulillah. That's number one. Another question is, just to keep moving on, inshallah, because I have a lot of points. I hope I'm going to have enough time to cover. They can take a form of a human. We don't have any evidence that they take other forms. They take a form of a human based on the hadith that, when, the hadith of the Iman, Ihsan, and Islam, or by order Islam, Ihsan, and then Islam, Iman, and then Ihsan, right? So when Angel Jibreel came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know the hadith narrated by Umar ibn Khattab, he said, we saw a man that there was no trace of travel on him. Usually white beard, beautiful looking man. And he came and he sat close to the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he asked him and the Prophet responded. He came in a form of a man. Now I want to share a quick story here. 10 years ago, I traveled with a friend, his name is Salah. We went to Umrah. That was my first Umrah. And we were sitting at Kaaba, basically. It was the last 10 nights of Ramadan. At the time of Maghrib, so I wasn't sitting right next to him, but I was close to him. He told me after the whole thing happened, he came to me and he told me what he just experienced, and he was in shock. He told me, I saw a man, white beard, beautiful looking man, amazing akhlaq. He came to me and he gave me dates and yogurt to break my fast. And he was sitting right next to me. He said, I wanted to turn to thank him, and he just disappeared. He said, I looked behind me, I didn't see any trace of him. The man just disappeared. Then he said, وَقَعَ فِي قَلْبِي أَنَّهُ مَلَكٌ. He said, really, I just felt in my heart that was an angel. I felt that this is a karama from Allah. Subhanallah. So this is something that, angels do take form of humans. That's a first-hand, that's an experience of a friend. So the other question is, do angels record every single thing that we do? The answer is yes. The evidence is in Surah Qaf. ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد. A man or a human does not utter one word or do anything except that he has a raqib and a atid sitting at his shoulders. And they write every single thing. There's the angel that writes the hasanat, and there's the angel that writes the sayyi'at. Now, there's a very interesting hadith about those two angels, how they communicate with each other and what happens in the midst of the human action here. So listen to this, give me your attention. This is a beautiful hadith. There are 4 scenarios, okay, for what we do in life. Number 1 is we intend to do something good and we don't do it. Number 2, we intend to do something good and we do it. Number 3, we intend to do something bad and we hold back from doing it. Number 4 is we intend to do something bad and we actually do it. So ratio is 3-to-1. Now I will explain what that ratio is. Is number 1 is when a person once intends to do good and he does good, the hasanat will be multiplied. It's not just one hasana will be written, but they will be multiplied by 10 up to 700 folds, as mentioned in the hadith. And in number 2 scenario, when we intend to do something good and we do not do it, a hasana will be written right away, subhanallah. Now in scenario number 3 is when we intend to do something bad and we hold back from doing it, that is written a hasana. So we have 3 scenarios now that hasanat are being written for you. Now scenario number 4 is when we intend to do something bad and we actually do it. This will be written down as sayyah. But in the hadith, the angel of the hasanat will tell the angel of the sayyat, hold for a moment, hold back, don't write the sayyah, because that person might do a tawbah. So even when you do the sayyah, you are given enough time to do your tawbah before the sayyah is actually written, even in scenario number 4, which is the only scenario that the sin is written. So ratio of the rahmah of Allah is 3-to-1. We have 4 scenarios that we do in our lives. 3 of them are the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, that's very interesting because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, Wallahu yuridu an yatuba alaykum. Allah wants to forgive you. Allah wants to admit you to Jannah. This is what Allah wants. This is the irada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Number 3. Do the angels protect us? Yes. In the Quran, in Surah Al-An'am, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُرْسِلُ عَلَيْكُمْ حَفَظَةً حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ تَوَفَّتْهُ رُسُلُنَا وَهُمْ لَا يُفَرِّطُونَ. Hafaza. Allah mentions hafaza, and those angels protect us throughout our lives. And those are sometimes scenarios when you hear someone falling from the 3rd floor and nothing happening to him, a car bumping into someone and he flies 5 meters far and then nothing happens, he just gets up and starts running. We see these videos on social media sometimes, and maybe some of us experience these things, subhanallah. But these are the angels protecting the human being. And sometimes you hear about an accident, the car was crushed but nothing happened to the person. We believe that those are the hafadah. They protect us because it's not our time yet. But when our time comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this same ayah, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ تَوَفَّتْهُ رُسُلُنَا. But when your time comes, another rusul, another angels will come, or the angel of death will come and will take your ruh. Subhanallah. But so long we still have time to live, there is angels that are called hafaza, that they are with us. We're not alone. At-taliyat, number 4. What are at-taliyat? They are mentioned in Surah Al-Saffat. فَالتَّالِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا. Those are angels that gather when you do dhikr, when you read Quran, when you pray. Those are angels that gather when we sit and in circles of knowledge and learn about Allah, or like a tafsir. Maybe they are also right now gathering around us, since we are only gathered right now for the sake of Allah and to learn more about Allah and to get closer to Allah, right? That's the intention of our gathering right now. So we have many evidence on that. One of those hadith, تَحُفُّهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, in which when people, مَجْتَمَعَ قَوْمٌ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ, when people get together in circles to learn about Allah, the angels will cover them up high and they will go all the way through the heavens. That's an accumulation scene of angels upon those people who are remembering Allah. So when Allah says at-taliyati dhikran, it means they actually come to where the dhikr is. This is one of the interpretations of this ayah. is there something in common between the angels and the human? Or is there, what are things that we need to be aware of while we understand and we believe that the angels are present around us? The interesting hadith here is that the Prophet ﷺ says, Al-malaika tata'adha mimma yata'adha minhu ibn Adam. That the angels are harmed from whatever harms the human being. Subhanallah. So we have a continuation of this hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says, Man akala thawm. Listen to this, this is interesting. Man akala thawm, whoever ate garlic, or al-basal, onion, or al-kurrat, which is leek, it's a type of onion as well, right? Whoever eats these things, do not come to the masjid, because you will harm others with that smell of garlic or thawm or onion, subhanallah. And unfortunately, maybe some of us have experienced this when we go to the masjid, you know, especially in the Taraweeh times after iftar, when someone has been having only onions on iftar, and then you pray next to them and you could smell it when they, you know, subhanallah. But this is something that harms. So a bad scent harms the angels just like it harms the human. I have to mention something very important here. The angels are with us all the time. Okay, angels are with us all the time. But there is something called junub. Junub is, I'm going to say this straight up forward. If someone does something when they're alone, okay, something that we know it displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Junub means when you are in a state of impurity. This is what it means. In that state, the angels do not come close. There's an authentic hadith about that. Until that person takes a shower and cleans themselves and do wudu, then the angels will be present. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. If we, if anything was, if someone watches something haram online, or if someone does something that they know it's haram and displeases Allah, something that you're not proud of, and you know that other people would not want to look at you when you are going through this, also angels will not like to go through. Now, if that's a sin, it will be written unless you are given. Of course, you will be given the chance based on the hadith to do your tawbah, right? So that's why وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ. Allah tells us in the Quran, follow a bad deed with a good one right away. If you ever felt that you fell in that and you repelled the angels away from you, go, take a shower, clean yourself and do 2 rak'ahs. And that will clear off any sin that you felt that you've done. So we have to understand the presence of the angels when we make these decisions in our lives. Number 5, do the angels love us? I'm sorry, how much time do I have, Shafiq or Nuran?
A couple more minutes, inshallah.
Okay.
Wrapping up, but
So,
inshallah, a couple more
yeah,
minutes.
do the angels love us? That's a very important question. Let me tell you this quick story. When the Sahaba once were sitting in the masjid, they were gathered and they were only studying the Quran. Look how beautiful that is. Then the Prophet ﷺ came to them and he said, what gathers you here? And they said, Ya Rasulullah, we are only gathered here to learn about Allah. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, Allahi, ma ajlasakum illa hadha. By Allah, is this the only reason you guys gathered? And they said, yes, Ya Rasulullah, is there something wrong with that? Or so the Prophet ﷺ said, no, but Jibreel just told me that Allah is showing you off to his angels. Allahu Akbar. Allah is showing you off to his angels. So just imagine that. There's another authentic hadith in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself speak in hadith Qudsi, انظروا إلى عبدي يترك طعامه وشرابه وشهوته لأجلي. Look at my servant. He left everything. He left his shahwa. He left food and he left drink. This is in the context of Ramadan. For my sake. Look, who is Allah telling or communicating with to look at you? He's communicating with the angels. So Allah shows us off to the angels when we make beautiful decisions. Look at my servants. Out of all the things that they could have been doing, especially youth, right? You have all the energy in the world. You have all the options in the world. You could be out there doing anything, but you choose to open the computer and listen to Sheikh Ala. You choose to go to the masjid. You choose to sit and read Quran out of all the options that you have. This is something amazing that Allah, it's so much worthy to Allah to show you off to the angels. And here we are speaking evidence. This is an authentic hadith. And continuing the answer to this question, that do the angels love us? There's a beautiful ayah in Surah Ghafir, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الذين يحملون العرش ومن حوله يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويؤمنون به ويستغفرون للذين آمنوا ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم. Allah tells us that there are angels that will be carrying the throne. يحملون العرش. There are angels, that's their specific mission, that's their specific function. And we don't have time, and this is not the place right now to talk about all the functions and the types of angels, but we're just putting things in context of you're not alone. So those angels, they love you. This is love in action. Let me tell you, I was asked last week from someone in my community, where's the love in the Quran? I was like, where is no love in the Quran? Tell me. Actually, Allah, when He speaks love by action. Like I can sit here, tell you I love you, and you're going to be excited. Wow, thank you. Then I tell you the next day, I love you. And then you're like, okay, that's nice. And then I come the third day and I tell you, I love you. Okay, and then what are you going to do about it? Where's the action, right? So Allah speaks love in action in the Quran. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. He have not abandoned you. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. Didn't He find you an orphan and He got you closer to Him and He guided you? So this is action in love, or love in action, I'm sorry. So the angels here are showing love in action by doing istighfar for us in this ayah. The ones who carry the throne and those that are around the throne, يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ. They do tasbih, وَيُؤْمِنُونَ, and they believe in their Lord, وَيَسْتَغْفِرُونَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And they do istighfar for those who believe. رَبَّنَا وَسِعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ رَحْمَةً. Oh Allah, your rahmah has encompassed everything. So forgive those who believed in you and followed your path, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Wallahi, the other day when I read this ayah, I felt so much burden. But then when I read this ayah, I felt, Ya Allah, if all humanity, if all people forgot, if all my friends and my family forgot to make dua for me, there's someone out there doing dua for me that I really need. It's the angels around the throne of Allah that are doing istighfar for us. This is in Surah Ghafir. يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. So Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for the presence of the angel. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, gave that task to the angels to do istighfar for us, because wallahi, we are in dire need for the istighfar of the malaika. And finally, a good question is, Allah knows everything, Allah sees everything, and Allah has the power to record everything. Why angels? Does Allah need to create angels and to be, observant upon humans and stuff? That is a manifestation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's dominion. Every king has a system, every government has a system, they have soldiers, they have, everything organized. You think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's dominion is not organized? You think Allah doesn't have soldiers? You think Allah does not delegate? Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, send these angels to do different things, subhanallah, to humanity. So may Allah accept from us, and I'm sorry if I took a little bit over my time. Thank you, Nuran, thank you, Shafiq, and thank you, Sheikh Ala, for inviting me. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Imam Thabit, for shedding some light on the angels. SubhanAllah, it's the angels, for me at least, it's something we obviously believe in, but it's because, I feel like they're not talked about enough, and something we can't see, and something it's hard to fathom, the 600 wings, and SubhanAllah. So thank you for tapping into that and helping us realize and remember that the angels are with us. And inshallah, once this quarantine is over, inshallah, we hope to visit you in the My Deen Center in the Fresno community. Inshallah, continue.
Ya Rab, I'm looking forward for that. Thank you so much.
Inshallah. Jazakallah.
Yes, and definitely like based off what Shafiq just said, I think it's just such an interesting topic to speak about angels because I think most people they're like the sira, like the Prophet ﷺ and the journey of like the Prophet ﷺ. So it's just really eye-opening to hear about angels. And I'm pretty sure so many of you guys have questions. So you can go ahead and actually just put them in the Q&A section here on Zoom, and we will be sure to answer that after our next speaker. So shukran and jazakallah khairan, Imam Thabit.
That's correct. That's correct, Noran. So if you're with us on the Zoom platform, there's the Q&A chat box section. Just click on that. Go ahead and shoot your question, and we will be addressing them at the very end. We are getting towards the end of our program here. Thank you for being with us. There's still the competition announcement where we still have to make mention of, and then the Q&A segment. But before that, we will have our dear Sheikh Ala come up and speak with us now, and I will introduce him shortly. If you're not on the Zoom platform, don't worry, you can still ask your questions. If you're on Facebook or on YouTube and you're watching this stream, you can still comment your question in the chat box or the comment. There's someone there that will go ahead and make sure your question gets received on the Zoom end, inshallah. With that, our final speaker tonight is our very own Sheikh Alauddin al-Bakri, who in my eyes I like to refer to him as the people's Sheikh, because mashallah, despite how busy he is and how swamped he is, he's always accessible to his people, to the local community and to communities abroad. He's always cooking up something, always, putting something together, pinging me, pinging Noran, pinging Imam Thabit and all these amazing speakers to get together. And he's always doing something, whether it's a youth trip or activity, a lecture, a reminder, a khutbah, or a program. My sheikh, my teacher, my mentor, my brother, Sheikh Alauddin al-Bakri.
Thank you, Brother Shafiq. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. First and foremost, I want to say, alhamdulillah, I did not have to do anything. This whole webinar was done and ran by youth of different ages. MashaAllah. I'm very impressed with what you, Brother Shafiq, and what you, Sister Noran, has done. MashaAllah, your pros, and MashaAllah, very pleased. May Allah reward you, and inshallah, you grow more and more and more and serve the community more, inshallah. Brother Shafiq, you need to stop saying I'm not young, because if you're not young, then I must be calling from the grave right now. Alhamdulillah, me and Brother Riyad Shamma 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, 1996 to year 2000, we used to attend youth camps, and we both wear red heads like mashallah, and then now we're both like mostly white heads. So alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. But I don't believe youth has something to do with age. It has to do with a state of mind. Who is a young person and who's an old person? Young person is young when they are agile. They can change and switch and turn very quickly. An old person is set in their own ways. When a young person becomes set in their own ways and they don't want to change, they become old. And when an old person becomes agile and changes and repent to Allah and turn his life around and always looking for the truth and always looking to improve themselves, the old becomes young. I see in our community 60 years old, 70 years old brothers and sisters, grandparents, not a single wrinkle in their face. And I see 15, 16, 17 with so much wrinkles in their face, it's unbelievable. So alhamdulillah, because the state of your mind and heart affects actually your physical state. So inshallah, we're all young and we all can change quickly and transform and become something better. Alhamdulillah, I have learned myself from these speeches. So that the conclusion is, you're not alone, your family is with you. Your family is not perfect, nor you are perfect, nor no human being is perfect. We're human beings, your family is with you. But if your family is not with you, your brothers and sisters are with you in Islam. They're a phone call away, and they love you and they care about you, and they're busy just like you. If they're not calling you enough, you call them. If you don't have that, your youth organization is with you, your mentors are with you, and inshallah, you're not alone. And if you don't have that, then the angels are with you, right? And they are around you, and they're, protecting you and talking to you, maybe without you understanding or knowing, mashallah. You're, mashallah, we have role models in our history that were alone, but yet with people, like our Maryam, mother Maryam alayhi salam. She had a family, amazing family, like Zakaria and his wife, who was her khala, and she grew up with a family, but yet she chose that journey and she walked in that journey by herself. But Allah was with her, the angels were with her, and her family was with her, but she still had to take that journey. So we learn from that. You can have the whole world around you. You can be the most famous person in the world, but at the end of the day, you have to walk the walk, and not only talk the talk, and you have to do it by yourself. At the end, it boils down on you. So, and we learn from Brother Riyadh, don't be the victim, don't be the victimizer, and don't be the one who's watching and just helping and aiding the victim or the victimizer. Be a winner, be a believer, because Allah described the believers as winners. Finally, I would like to say, subhanAllah, even if you wanted to be alone, being alone, as we learned from the speakers, is not a bad thing. It's something that you need to do from time to time. In our deen, there's something called khalwa, like the Prophet ﷺ went to the cave back and forth for 5 years. Our teachers used to go out for like 40 days and just like simple food and just like make dhikr and salah and this, refresh, re-energize their faith, and then they come back and sit with people and do their thing. So even being alone is not bad. It's only bad if you make it bad, right? So, there is time for socialization, there's time for you and yourself. Even if you want to be alone, brothers and sisters, we're not alone. We can never be alone because Allah Azza wa Jal is with us. And by the way, Allah is with every human being. One, with knowledge, and two, with the believers with knowledge and mercy. So Allah knows what everyone is doing, but Allah is with the believers. A different, what we call withinness. There is with you, and then is with you. The first with you, I'm just with you, okay, I'm hanging. And the first one, I'm with you, I'm supporting you, I'm there for you. Allah is with everyone, but He's with the believers, and they get special withinness with Allah Azza wa Jal. So, and that's what we are looking for. I want to share this just with you so that you understand like what's going on in the world. In the world that we live in, there is outside of us and there is inside of us. Outside of us, Allah created materials, systems, objects. These objects, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them for you. And Allah taught Adam, the first human being, the names of these things so that he knows how to use them and to his benefit. So right now I'm sitting here and you're sitting in your room. You look around you, what's around you? There is a wall, there's a computer screen, there's a camera, there's your phone, there's the mushaf around you, right? There's the desk, there's a cup, right? What are these? Around us is nothing but objects. Where these objects hold value is only inside us. The real world, where is the real world is happening? It's happening within maybe 2 feet by half a feet. This is where the real world is happening. The real world and your world is happening within you, inside you. So inside you, you look at this cup, you say, oh, that's a cup of water, that's a cup of tea, that's a screen. If a squirrel walks into the room, he will not give the same meaning to the same objects. So what does that mean? What does that mean is that we need to start paying attention to the conversation that is taking place between you and you. This conversation can be very destructive, and your nafs is riding you, and shaitan is riding your nafs, and your bad company is riding you and shaitan, and you're being ridden for a very bad drive, very bad journey in your life. Or inside of you, the conversation is so positive, so constructive, that You drive the meanings of the world around you from the book of Allah. That's why in the book of Allah, we read in the Quran in Ramadan, and we get ideas. How do we see the world? Quran and Sunnah are like glasses. You put them, you see clarity, and now you see through these lenses. What lenses are you using? Are you using the lenses of your nafs? Are you using the lenses of shaitan? Are you using the lenses of what? Of bad company? Are you using the lenses of fame? You just want to be famous at any cost? People are literally performing things that are killing them just so that to be famous, because they just, to them, they wore lenses. If I'm not famous, I'm not worthy of anything. Brothers and sisters, in this conversation, what is the whole Quran? Allah teaches you how to talk to yourself in Al-Quran Al-Kareem. Most of us, they made a scientific research about human beings. An average human thinks 355 negative thoughts about themselves a day. You know how many positive thoughts they think? 5. 355 to 5. What does Allah want you? Allah wants to increase those 5 and make them more. Why? Because in one way, you're always alone and you will always be alone. Why? Because between you and yourself, there is no one else except Allah. There's no other human being. So you're always alone when we talk about human beings. You are never alone when we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're always alone. If you cannot make peace with yourself inside, if you don't see the world the way it is for real, not the way it appears to be, then you will always be in a conversation of, destructive conversation. You will always be feeding yourself a negative thought. And that is the mother of all destruction. In this world, inside you, look, you are a body, you are a nafs, you are a heart, and the hearts are 2, emotional hearts and mental heart, like your deep consciousness. You have a mind and you have a soul. And some ulama add another one. It's called your deep dimension that only Allah knows. What you don't know about yourself, that Allah knows. In Arabic, there is a sir wa akhfa. Allah mentioned that He knows about us as sir wa akhfa. Sir is what you know, but others don't know about you, but you know about yourself. What is akhfa is what you don't know about yourself, but Allah knows about you. So in other words, there is 7 of you. 7 of you, that is one layer above another. Body, nafs, emotional heart, mental heart, mind, soul, and your deepest dimension. 7 of you, 7 layers on the top of each other. Only 1 out of the 7 you can see with your own eyes, which is your body. 6 out of 7 are in a hidden dimension. That hidden dimension is what Allah is telling us and teaching us about ourselves. If we don't know the difference between our nafs and our mind and our emotional heart and our soul and if we don't know, then we can always be lost inside. Most of us are lost inside of ourselves, not outside. We have a GPS, we know where we're going, but inside you, you're lost. Why? Because you don't know yourself. So it's an opportunity. This is Ramadan. This is the month of the Quran. This is the month of fasting. Allah gave you a gift to get to know yourself. Get to know yourself, and get to know yourself not through everything else, but through the book of Allah. Let Allah teach you about yourself, and let Allah teach you how to talk to yourself, because you will always be alone, and at the same time, you will never be alone. You know what Allah said? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I created the human, and I know what his nafs whispers to him. Forget shaitan, what he whispers. Forget another human, what you whisper to yourself. So Allah is listening into the conversation. What conversation? Why did she do that to me? She's so bad. I'm going to show her. This is all going through your head. Why did he do that to me? Why did he say? Who does he think? You're fighting inside your head. And Allah is listening to the conversation. And of Allah's mercy, He will not judge you by that conversation. And of Allah's mercy, He keeps it covered. Like this, He gives you your privacy in other ways, right? So that you could grow and grow and grow until one day you realize how you talk to yourself. Most of us, we call ourselves inside our head, I'm stupid, I'm bad, I will never be good, I'm going to hell. I'm just like follow the shut. There are few of us actually say, no, inshallah, Allah will help me. I am good, and there is some evil about me. I'm gonna use my good side to fight my bad side, and I'm gonna use the book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm gonna find a teacher, a mentor, and I'm gonna find a group of people who will learn Quran and Islam together, and we're gonna come together and we're gonna learn, because the wolf will only eat the lonely sheep. You're not alone, brothers and sisters. There's so many organizations, so many messages, so many youth committees. Tawasaw is not the only organization, nor it is the best organization. It is just an organization that is out there to serve people. And if Allah accept our deeds, alhamdulillah, and we try to work with everyone and invite everyone, and everyone is anyone that wants to serve Allah, ahlan wa sahlan. And our youth, we're teaching our youth how to talk to themselves and how to talk to others. The art and science of speaking, public speaking, but public speaking starts first with you knowing how to talk to yourself. And that is what today they're eating our brains alive. Mindfulness, living mindfulness. Whoa, how much is that? Well, that's a $1,500 course for a weekend. Oh my God. Living wisely. How much is that? Oh, that's a $3,000 course. What's his name? Tony Robertson? No, what is his name? The guy. You have to fly to Fiji. Tony Robbins. $6,000 for 1 week plus the tickets, right? So that you can go and he can tell you something that you. What is everyone doing today? Everyone is looking for an answer, looking for a way of life, looking for a way that you can live your life and enjoy it. That's exactly what Islam is. People are paying thousands of dollars and you're getting offered the same thing from every organization, from every masjid for free. So what I'm saying, Allah put a very simple system. Find your Muslim group, learn Islam together with them, find a mentor, start learning your deen so you know how to talk to yourself and you know how to talk to others. And inshallah, you're going to get better and better and better. And you're going to become successful, as Allah said, and you're going to become a winner, as Allah said, and you're going to become better, as Allah said. And then when you're done finishing all of these accomplishments in dunya, you're going to inshallah go to Jannah in Akhirah. And we all inshallah sit in Jannah and talk about this and about everything else we did in our lives. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Jazakum Allah khair. And thank you for staying all the way up to the end. We have, I think, one more thing, inshallah, and I will hand it back to our youth, to Shafiq and Nuran. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you, Sheikh, for highlighting the importance of how it is that we even, our mental health, of how we really, speak to ourselves internally. I think that really was a great note to really wrap up this great Qiyam that we have hosted. To everybody who's still here, thank you so much for attending and really, staying till the end. We have two last things that we want to address. Shafiq mentioned in the beginning that we have a summer competition with Tawasaw. And so I will, before we show our promotional video, we have Omar who put that together. Thank you, Omar. I'll just quickly go through the flyer. And then once we go through the video, we will then address our question and answer segment. I will share the flyer with you all. This will be accessible on social media once we put out the video and whatnot. So Tawasaw is hosting a summer competition, and we really want to see you put together an artistic piece. It could be a video, and if it is no longer than 5 minutes, or a poetry or an art piece that really communicates something beneficial to the community. And the content should primarily be, how to use your time and not be bored. What did you learn from this lockdown about your life or yourself? How did your faith help, and how did you help the community? Now, youth, listen up. The grand prize is a grand total of $300. So that is a really large prize. And that could be you. Just put your heart to it. And second place is at $200, which is still quite a lot. And the third place is at $100. And then on top of the top three prizes that we will be giving out, there will also be two prizes of $50 each. The submission deadline is July 15th. So We want to get this right before Eid, and the winners will be notified the day before Eid al-Adha on July 30th. And there will be more information available on tawassul.org. And Amar now will play our promotional video for you. We look forward to seeing all your great submissions. Amar, take it away.
Okay, so yeah, as she mentioned, it's about art and expression and communication and still not being able to leave the house. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the video that the Tawassul youth put together.
Assalamu alaikum Muslim youth. Tawassul is hosting a competition for you all to participate in.
We would like to see you put together an artistic piece that communicates something beneficial to the community. For example, how to use the time and not be bored. What did you invent? How did you help your community?
What did you learn from this lockdown about your life? Did your family do something unique? And how did your faith help you during this time?
Submissions can include poetry recitals, art pieces, comedy skits, or short films.
You'll be judged upon creativity, quality, level of insight, and execution.
Please ensure that each submission is a reflection of your own work and that you are abiding by the rules of quarantine in the making of your submission.
And prizes range from $50 to $300 cash. So would love to see you guys participate. Please spread the word out to your family and friends. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And yeah, I guess be sure to enter the competition. We can't wait to see what all of you enter, your art, your expression, and good luck.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, do feel free to reach out to any of us. And I think that is all that we have for the summer competition. Do feel free to answer questions because now we will be jumping right into that.
Awesome. I just want to say, God bless you all, Tawassul, and everyone involved with the competition, because when I was a youth, there were probably competitions happening, but when I was a younger youth, because I still am a youth, based on Sheikh Ala's advice, when I was a younger youth, there were competitions, but subhanAllah, I don't know if they were to this magnitude of prizes and creativity and awesomeness and really promoting the arts. So youth, take advantage of this. The Q&A section is now officially open. I'm seeing plenty of questions coming in on our Zoom platform. And if you're not on our Zoom platform, you can comment your question in the comment or chat box wherever you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or whatever it is. I'll go ahead and start. Inshallah, I want to wrap up right at 2 o'clock. We don't want to go much longer than that, so we have some time to to pray, read Quran, do what we got to do before Suhoor and Fajr. So we'll tackle these questions one at a time. The first question that came in it's pretty lengthy, so I'm going to summarize it, paraphrase it on the individual's behalf, but they're pretty much asking in regards to are there any hadith about the time period you have for tawbah? Something about there being 6 hours and then the sins wiped away. What happens if you perform tawbah after the time frame you have? That's our first question.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So for that question, I did not find any authentic narrations that tells us exactly what the time period is. But Tawbah does not have a specific time. Tawbah specifically could be done at any time. In fact, Tawbah tajubbu ma qablaha wal Islamu yajubbu ma qablahu. When someone does a Tawbah, it clears, it's supposed, like you do a Tawbah for all the sins, that is a Tawbah that clears everything in the past. So a Tawbah is a Tawbah. Istighfar, even any sin that is written, it could be erased instantly when you do your istighfar, even when that sin is written. But this hadith again is a manifestation of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which he shows us that even when you do a sin, Allah does not allow an angel to write it right away, right? That just show us his mercy. But even when it's written, even with that, you do your istighfar, done deal, So that's it, inshallah. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question, inshallah. We'll tackle these questions with 1 or 2 minute answers so we can keep it moving. How many angels do you have with you?
How many again?
How many angels? We were talking about angels. The question is, how many angels do you have with you?
So you have two angels that are constantly with you, and the rest of the angels, they come based on occasion or based on action, or they could leave also. These angels, when you enter the bathroom, for example, the angels do not go with you inside the bathroom. That's why you say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith, because now the shayateen are usually present at that time. Yeah.
The next question about angels actually is that you mentioned Angel Jibril had 600 wings. The question is, do all angels have 600 wings or just Angel Jibril?
No, this is mashallah, all the questions are about angels, what's happening here. So Angel Jibril, Angel Jibril has 600 wings based on the authentic narration, but other angels not necessarily. No, this is Angel Jibril, and he's the greatest angel. We know that he is the greatest angel. He is the Rasul of the Sama. He is the Rasul of the heavens. And other angels, Allah tells us in the Quran, Mathna wa thulatha wa ruba' وَجَاعِلِ الْمَلَائِكَةِ أُولِي أَجْنِحَةٍ. Allah tells us in Surah Fatir, He made the angels, He created angels also with wings. Mathna wa thulatha wa ruba'. Twos and threes and fours. Those are the number of the salawat that we do, subhanAllah. Those are the also the number of the wings. Could be multiplied, could be specifically to Allah. Yeah.
More questions about the angels. Imam Thabit, it seems like you really captivated the youth with that subject. I'm going to combine these two questions in one. It's how do you know, what does an angel look like in human form, and how do you know when you see an angel?
Yeah, I emphasized the human form when I spoke, that usually a good-looking man with a white beard, white dress. This is an observation from Salihin. I heard so many stories from other righteous people who had like witnessed an angel. Usually it looks like a man with a white beard, beautiful looking and very polite, usually with akhlaq. Allahu Ta'ala a'lam. But also we have the authentic narration that also describes Angel Jibreel coming in that human form to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So now the questions coming in are slowly shifting gears here. It's regarding the competition. The question is, can you team up for the competition, or does it have to be one individual submitting?
One individual for now.
Okay, so it's a single person submitting, no teams for this competition. The next question is regarding fasting in Ramadan. Can someone choose not to fast because they feel sick? Is that permissible, or do they need to have like a doctor approval that they're sick and it's harmful for them to fast?
If your sickness gets worse by fasting, or if fasting delays the healing, one of these two scenarios, and if these two scenarios are approved by a Muslim doctor, that your sickness will get worse by fasting, or the healing will delay because of fasting, then you break your fast. But self-assessment, I can, wand my finger and say I'm sick and I'm bleeding, or I can get just a common cold and say I'm sick and this, but that actually does not get, the healing doesn't get delayed because of fasting, nor you get worse because you're fasting. If you drink enough liquids at night, you can survive a cold easily, right? But people with kidney problems, with old age, with this and that, then yes. But always we trust our Muslim doctors, and Muslim doctors are very, very abundant everywhere. And if you cannot, then your own doctor, you tell them how do you fast, and you ask them, would fasting delay the healing or increase the sickness? That's a quick answer. Jazakallah khair.
Okay, the next question, Jazakallah khair. These questions, mashallah, are coming in faster than we can address them. They're asking about the submission. Can it be in a form of a collage? I think I can answer that one. It could be in the form of any artistic expression, whatever medium you use to express and address those points we talked about. A video, a collage, a painting, a poetry, whatever it is. Inshallah,
Right.
it should be okay.
Just piggybacking off of that, I think it's essentially whatever you submit should just reflect the content that is in the requirements for the competition. So as long as you are addressing what is required content-wise, whatever you submit should be acceptable in that sense.
Exactly. Jazakallah khair, Noorun. Next question is, what can you do to be more conscious of your actions? How can I prevent myself from hurting others' feelings or doing bad deeds? Sheikh, if you're talking, your mic is, we can't hear you.
Sister Bawana, Kamil, or Bhavna, Kamil, and Brother Riyad Shamma, if you want to answer this question, we would love your participation. Sister, you can go ahead.
Jazakallah khairan. That's a very good question. You know, I think being I think being self-aware is sort of an advanced stage of thinking, right? So most of us, we think and we have our thoughts, but then to pause and then observe our thoughts and observe our actions is like the second level of sort of consciousness or thinking. So the fact that you're asking this question actually is the first step to even be aware that there is such a thing as like being able to be conscious of your actions. The other part of it is it really just takes practice and be gentle with yourself, right? The fact that you are asking, how can I prevent myself from hurting others' feelings or doing bad deeds means you're already aware that this is something you want to avoid. I mean, just having that awareness is the first step. You know, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Man yara minkum munkaran," right? Whoever amongst you sees an evil, then you should let you change it with your hand, and if you cannot, then with your tongue, and if you cannot, then in your heart, and that is the weakest of faith. You know, this hadith, people always focus on that second part, if you see something evil, then change it, and they talk about the changing, but the first part is being able to see the evil, right? And how can you change something if you can't even recognize that something is bad? So this is the first step, and it just takes practice. And this is also the benefit of having good friendships and good people around you, that if you have people that you trust, especially mentors or really good friends, and if you're on the same page about this, ask them to point it out to you. And there's no hard feelings, right? I mean, I have the benefit, I'm married, and when we married each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we can be those advisors for each other, right? My husband and I, we see the most intimate things about each other, so we can be free about that. As a youth, you have friends, you have parents, you have mentors. Sometimes parents you're not very open to getting advice from your parents, but maybe friends or mentors. Ask them, can you please point this out to me if you think there's something that I can improve? And be open to doing that for somebody else as well. And as they point things out, and as you become aware and as you practice it, it'll become, I think, sort of a habit, and it'll become easier for you to notice these things. Allahu alam. That's what I can think of at 1 a.m. 1:41 a.m.
Jazakallah khair. I think that's on point. Like a good friend would tell you if you had food stuck in your teeth and it's showing. So in that same, in that same logic, they will tell you if you're doing something, haram or whatever. And I personally I tell my group of friends, if we end up somehow, right, doing something haram, someone needs to call it out, right? Like if we're sitting in a gathering and we're backbiting, someone needs to call it out, right? So that's definitely very good advice, Jazakallah khair, on that. So moving on to the next question.
Right, very quickly, I just want to add on to what Shafiq said. In terms of when you call people out for something that you think is incorrect, there's a certain manner to do it, right? And so just something I wanted to touch base on, because this is something people struggle with in the sense of, oh, like, this girl's praying and she's wearing nail polish, or, there's a way to, you want to call that out, or, you see something wrong. I think the way to do it is just people mistaken that to openly degrade or, tell people that they're doing something wrong in such a public setting, which isn't always the most appropriate. So it's important to note that if you are in that situation, that, you do it with care and love, and you take the person aside, and there's a manner to it. That's the way, the Prophet did it, like back then. We have examples of that in the Sunnah. So it's just something I wanted to add on before we hit up to the next question. But yes, Shafi, continue.
No, definitely. Jazakallah khair. It was mentioned that Imam Thabit said that the Prophet ﷺ saw Angel Jibril, and he covered the entire horizon. So the question here is, how big is the angel that's with us at all times?
There's no specific size that I know of. I can give this question for Sheikh Ala if he knows anything about that. But I don't think there's any narrations that tells exactly the size of angels, because this is something from which is unseen. It's not within our realm. So therefore we cannot fathom.
Sheikh Ala, do you have anything to add, or?
Can you repeat? Can you repeat the question?
The question was, how big are the angels that are with us at all times? Imam Thabit mentioned that Prophet ﷺ saw Angel Jibril and he covered the entire horizon. So the question is, how big are the angels that are with us?
So they belong to a different dimension. From their dimension, they can see us. We cannot see them. So how big or how small becomes irrelevant. It's like you're asking how many pounds is the angel in weight. No, the angel does the size and this it becomes irrelevant. And Rasulullah ﷺ saw angels in the form of human beings when he was 4 years old, when they opened his chest. There's another narration that opening the chest happened again at age 10, and then it happened again at age when he was 50, when before going to an Isra wal Mi'raj. The Prophet ﷺ saw Jibril alayhi salam twice in his original form, and that was in Al-Isra wal Mi'raj. After coming from the Ghar of Hira, he saw Jibril as a human being. His feet is on the ground and his head in the sky. So and that frightened the Prophet ﷺ, because this is the first time he can see such a huge image of a human, like the head in the sky and the foot on the ground. And even the Prophet ﷺ, to see Jibril in his original form, he himself had to be prepared for that magnificent sight. But yet, that 600 wings could shrink into a size of a human, and then he will show to the Prophet ﷺ. And even the Sahaba saw Jibril when he came and asked the Prophet 3 questions: what is Islam, what is Iman, what is Ihsan? He took a form of a human being, very normal size, 5'10", probably 5'11", 6 feet, not longer or not taller. So the angels have this ability. So size and weight and all of that, they're created from light. Go figure, Yeah.
Jazakallah khair, guys. Couple more questions, and then I'm going to pass it on to Nurun to ask the rest of the questions, inshallah. We have less than 15 minutes, and we want to address as many questions as we can from the youth. Mashallah, they're coming in quick. Is there an age limit for the competition?
The age limit is it's gonna be like a middle school or a high school or a college student. These 3 groups are the predominant 3 groups that we serve at Tawasaw, as you know. So we have 3 groups, always middle school, high school, and college students. And the whole point is about communication. That's what how can you use art to communicate your ideas within the requirements of the content and the subjects that we're looking for, right? So please, inshallah, we're going to have more details about the subjects, and this is going to be a nice email. Everyone who registered with us to the seminar will receive an email about that competition, and inshallah, it will be very exciting.
Inshallah. The last question before I pass it to Sister Nurun to continue the Q&A segment. This one's a heavy one. I'm going to summarize it. It's very lengthy, but this person says they've been going through a tough time during quarantine. Things are difficult for them, causing them to fall into a depressed state. They've been having negative thoughts and some things that are, not correct, permissible in Islam. And when they ask an imam for advice, they say to go to the mosque and be around youth, to stay busy with good people. But this is not an option because of the coronavirus. What can they do to stop themselves from having these negative thoughts in isolation and not be tempted to slip into haram?
Inshallah, you will not slip in haram, and inshallah, you can handle the test and trial that you're going. And here is what happens to me when I go through something that I don't like and I don't want, and I want the things to change, but it doesn't change. So then I get the idea, Allah wants me to go through this and to learn a lesson from this. The second you learn a lesson, the second you face yourself, you sit down and you say to yourself, talk to me. I'm not scared of you. Let's settle here. What do you want? Why are you sad? What's making you sad? You really face yourself. I find that people spend their entire lifetime running away from facing themselves. So maybe you say, I am young and I'm not qualified to face myself and I need help. Very good. We have mentors in the society, mashallah. Sister, Kamil is here, and I'm trying to see how to pronounce your name. Bawani or Bawana, or how do you say it?
Bhavna.
Bhavna, mashallah, Bhavna. So Bhavna, Kamil. So inshallah, we are accessible to you. We can help you. If it's so severe that you're feeling suicidal in this, then it's a good idea, and you must reach to a psychiatrist and to a psychologist and to a therapist. But if it's not there, and it is within, just the normal range, then I think you're on for a great start. You gotta face yourself, and you gotta take the leadership, get over it. There is a steps for that. I would be more than happy to help you with it, inshallah. But we can't just run away and just talk to people, because at the end, you're gonna come back and be with yourself. Remember, you're gonna always be alone, and you will never be alone at the same time. You will always be alone in the world of human beings, because nobody can hear to the conversation between you, and you will never be alone, because Allah listens, and that's the beauty and the reality of things. So inshallah, go ahead.
I have just a couple of things to add.
Yes, please.
Because I've had people in my life who have gone through anxiety or depression, and it can seem, alhamdulillah, I don't think I've felt it to like that kind of acute level, so I can't speak from personal experience, but from observation, it seems like it tends to be like a vicious cycle and almost a snowball effect. This is kind of related. Recently, I had an injury where I herniated a disc, and it really hurt. It hurt my arm, and the doctor prescribed steroids. And what steroids do is they immediately reduce the inflammation so that your body can start to heal itself. I sometimes think that, especially amongst youth, depression and anxiety can be like that sort of overwhelming snowball effect, and you need something to immediately stop that inflammation, and then you can start that deeper work. So I think there's a lot of ways in which you can tackle this. So you can tackle it by self-reflection and spirituality. I also think, just from a practical level, people I know who have dealt with this, there are actually workbooks. I know this isn't like a really profound answer, but if you look on like online bookstores or something, I hate to promote Amazon, but anyway, if you look on Amazon, they have these workbooks for teens on how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with depression. And it's basically like cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's asking you to sort of change your patterns of thought to then, or change your behavior that can change your pattern of thought. And I think a lot of those exercises can at least help reduce sort of the extreme feelings you might be feeling, so that you can get to a level where you can do the kind of work that you need to be doing. So, if you have access to a counselor, either through your like health insurance, or there's the Khalil Center locally that does mental health work, you can reach out to them. You can do these workbooks, but I think it's really helpful to get some mental health support, so that you can at least sort of bring down the severe level of feelings you might be having, so that you're in a place where you can then start to confront yourself and the feelings you might be having.
Yes, thank you. I think that honestly opens up a lot of different options to wherever you are. And of course, do feel free to reach out to, these people in your community on a personal level if you do feel comfortable enough talking about it. The next question we have is, why do we fast?
Very simple. Allah created the human to know Him, love Him, serve Him, and worship Him. And that everything I said could be engulfed in one word, worship. And Allah said, I want you to worship so that you can gain taqwa. Taqwa means shield. This shield pushes out all the harm and lets in all the benefit. And then Allah said in the Quran, and I want you to have taqwa so that you become successful in this world and in your eternity journey. So you're created to know God. To know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to have the belief and the practice. The combination of belief and practice is called taqwa. And taqwa leads you to become a very successful person in this world and in the hereafter. So I see, mashallah, so many startup companies in the Bay Area that have been started by very, very deeply religious and practicing Muslims. And when you ask them, oh my God, how did you do it? They always say Islam was the reason. So Islam is here to make you successful in dunya and in akhirah. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. Give us goodness in this world and goodness in the hereafter. Goodness in this world. Not give us this world in any way, shape, or form through corruption, through lying, through cheating, through stealing, through just any way, by hook or by crook, as they say. No. Give us success in this world through the path of goodness, and in the hereafter through the path of goodness. So why are we fasting? Because you need to get a hold of yourself. Why you're fasting? Because you need self-discipline. Why you're fasting? Because you need to be in charge of yourself. Yourself cannot be in charge of you. Your mind needs to be in charge of your nafs. And when the mind can control the nafs and say, no eating, no drinking, no mating, no sleeping, no resting, we're going to pray and read Quran and fast and this and that, now you have self-discipline. Self-discipline is what humanity misses most of the time. I see in a 10 years old kid, or 10 don't have to fast, but in a 16 years old kid, more self-control than in a 40 years old kid. Why? Because we fast. And so many benefits of fasting: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, economical, financial. It's so many benefits for fasting that we cannot count them easy. We fast because Allah told us to fast, and every time Allah tells us to do something, it's absolutely into our benefit. I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, people were calling us crazy. You guys are crazy. You're not eating or drinking. That's not healthy. Alhamdulillah, in the last 2 years, the craze in the world of diet has been fasting. And some of these dietitians that became very world-renowned famous people, some of them have honesty. They say the best fasting is the Ramadan fasting, intermittent fasting, wet fasting, which means you don't eat but you drink water, dry fasting, which means you don't eat or drink water, and finally the Nobel Prize the last year was given to a chemist and a biologist, a scientist from Japan, who proven that fasting and the stress you get with fasting, like you're fasting and you're thirsty and it's sunny and you're hungry and your body goes through stress, what it does, it makes the body cell go and become younger. Every body cell has a garbage can that throws all the DNA in it, the broken DNA. It goes back to that broken DNA, it takes it, it fixes it, and it reproduces it as another healthy cell. That garbage bag of DNA, if it stays there, that's the reason why we end up with cancer. So, alhamdulillah, right now, nobody has anything on us. Everybody is following fasting, and they're saying it is the way, and it's the way for the best healthy way. So many benefits for fasting on so many levels. Jazakumullah.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. You really nailed that. The next question we have is, what is the awrah for a woman in front of her mahram and other women? Or I think, yeah, if anybody would like to answer that.
Sister Bhavna, do you want to go for that?
I don't know in front of other women. It is from navel to knee. So so anything below the navel and above the knee is awrah in front of women. And one of the which seems strange, some people may think, why isn't it the whole sort of like upper body? But it's a rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because sometimes women need to nurse, like in front of other women, for example. So then there's no fear that you're doing something that displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the awrah in front of women. In front of mahram, I'm not sure. Maybe somebody else, because there's like a cultural component to it, right? Like even like a girl in front of her father, even if something is allowed Islamically, she still may, just out of modesty, choose to cover up like more than what is allowed. So I'm not actually sure. Maybe somebody else could answer that question.
Imam Thabit, do you want to say something quickly?
No, Sheikh Ala, I prefer you answer this question, inshallah.
Okay, so haya, bashfulness, usually in our tradition, from the time of the Prophet till now, it doesn't have to be a fard, but girls in front of their fathers, in front of their brothers, in front of their uncles, they wear that like abaya, like from the neck down, they're covering, but they don't have to cover their head. And they can show some of their arm, they can this and that, but traditionally, we're not talking about strict rules and regulations, but traditionally we find that girls in front of their brothers and in front of their dads and in front of the father of the husband and in front of your own uncle, there is that like covering that covers the body, like pants and shirt, just normal, like what I call dress, right? This and this and that. You wouldn't walk out with maybe a training suit or like I don't know, a swimsuit or something like that, even though they are your mahram, because there's that element of haya. And in front of women, as the sister said, of Allah's mercy, there's a certain aura, but in front of men, whether they are mahram, the mahram you still cover from the neck down, but in front of non-mahram men, that's when you wear the hijab and you cover your head and you become modest. But it comes natural in almost every Muslim culture I have seen. Girls in front of their dads and brothers, and they're still covering. Maybe they're just not covering their hair. That's it. Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
It is 2 a.m., but we have a lot of questions. I think we'll make room for one more, unless anyone else is free to stick around. But yes, so the question is, Imam Thabit Anani said that the Prophet Muhammad first saw the angel Jibreel outside the cave. I thought the Prophet, peace be upon him, first saw angel Jibreel when he was taking the bad part out of the Prophet's heart when the Prophet was young. Could you please elaborate on that?
So yes, this story happened when Prophet Muhammad was a young kid, about 2 to 4 years old, which angel Jibreel came and took him and opened his chest. And we know this is usually narrated in the tafsir of Surah Al-Sharh, Alam nashrah laka sadrak. But we don't put this in context because Rasulullah was a baby, basically, was very young. We say that the first time that Rasulullah saw angel Jibreel in his actual form is narrated in the hadith that when he was in the cave of Hira, in the actual form of Jibreel. There are other narrations, but this is the one that I really found that majority of scholars talk about, that the Prophet saw angel Jibreel in the cave of Hira the first time in his real form, the 600 wings.
Okay, Jazakallahu khairan. I see one question about the competition, which is, can your submission be a mix of different mediums? As long as it's one submission, from what I understand, it should be okay. If you can incorporate, there is a limit to only one submission per person. So if you could somehow combine them, then do feel free to. And if it's a video, it should be no longer than 5 minutes. It is 2 a.m. and our Qiyam is coming to an end, and I believe we're going to wrap up from here. Unless anybody is anyone still available to continue questions, but I think many of us either have to go for suhoor or have to pray the Hajj.
Let's wrap up, inshallah.
Yeah, so I just want to say Jazakallah khairan to everybody who came out and really stayed for the duration. It was a little long, but we really wanted to emanate how a youth qiyam would go at the masjid, and we really appreciate the support and everybody coming out. SubhanAllah, this was a great audience and we had a great panel here. So Jazakallah khairan to the panel as well for coming up with these great discussions. It was really great to hear and really eye-opening. So a big thank you from me and the Tawaso team.
Inshallah, may Allah bless you. And thank you for all the panelists and It's amazing that maybe Brother Riyad Shamma is still with us from the Midwest. Probably the sun is already rising there, or it's Fajr. Thank you, Jazakallah khair. Brother Riyad, are you there? MashaAllah. That's okay. So inshallah, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept from us whatever we did tonight. Inshallah, we were of help and benefit to the believers, men and women. Inshallah, we were of service to them. Inshallah, we open their eyes to something that is good and close their eyes from something that is bad and harmful to them. May Allah Azza wa Jal use us as tools to bring benefit to people in every way, shape, and form. May Allah honor us with the service of His deen, and may Allah make us honorable in His eyes. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Ya Allah, make us witness Laylatul Qadr in these last 10 nights and don't deprive us from that. Grant us the witnessing of Laylatul Qadr and give us all the reward and abundance that comes with it, and grant us the intention and the action and the energy to do good deeds for the remainder of Ramadan and to finish on a strong note and on a high note. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Muhammad walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And inshallah, we see you next time, inshallah.